Okay, so we're back. We were talking about the music theory section of the book, page 20, page 21, moving forward a little bit. And transposing is what we were just talking about. And there are several reasons you might transpose. One is to make it easier to play. One is to accommodate playing with somebody else who maybe only knows it in another key. But if you're a better musician, you could play it in any key, and then that's a huge asset to whoever else may be there. But the other thing is maybe you've learned a song in one key, but suddenly you want to play it with somebody and they want to play it in a different key because they're on a different instrument. Maybe it's a slack key guitar player and they're tuned in a certain key, so it makes sense to be able to accommodate that. If you're a good enough musician, you can do that, no problem. If you're not a good enough musician, then you're kind of stuck. You need to find a book that has it in the right key, and in the flow of a Kanikapila, that's just never going to work. So learning the basics of this stuff turns out to be really important. Let's look more at this, what it'll do here, this chord chart. So we have the middle side, as I call it. Then we have the western side, which is the ones that most people are acquainted with if they've seen, if they've learned ukulele, and you get your basic ukulele book or ukulele fake book or 3-chord songs on a ukulele or 4-chord songs on a ukulele. There are a bunch of good books out there for songbook collections, but they don't actually necessarily teach you a whole lot about how to be better at ukulele, which is what I'm trying to teach you here. All this stuff turns out to be how to be a better and more effective ukulele player in real life scenarios. So you learn these chords, and then you end up in Hawaiian music, and you come up against the Hawaiian side, and that trips a whole lot of people. A whole lot of people. Because they don't know what to do. They're not expecting those chords. So that's the reason why I set up the Kanikapila chord chart in that way, is because in Kanikapila scenarios, you might get one song, you might get another song. You might get a song that you think is a Hawaiian song, but it's not really a Hawaiian song. So it follows more of a Western-style chord progression than a Hawaiian-style chord progression. Classic example is Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which of course is a redo. I mean, his interpretation of that was brilliant, but because it's not, strictly speaking, a Hawaiian song, it doesn't have Hawaiian-y style chord progressions, and so it's really more of a Western-style song. Not like Western like Giddy Up, but Western like to distinguish it from the Hawaiian genre. Now, of course, all Hawaiian songs aren't the same, just like all reggae songs aren't the same, and all country songs aren't the same. I mean, sometimes it talks about your dog, sometimes it talks about your truck. Sorry. I like all these genres of music. The thing about Hawaiian that throws people is this vamp. So let's talk about the vamp. It's written right there on the chord chart on the left-hand side under the column Hawaiian vamp. If we're in the key of C, it'll sound like this. We talk about the rhythm of the strum on a previous video, the ones that are talking about strums. What if suddenly we're in the key of G? Now it sounds like this. I just changed keys. What if it's in the key of F? Then it sounds like this. Changing keys is really easy, and in fact, if you're going to play Hawaiian music, learning these chords in this sequence turns out to be a really effective way of practicing chords. If you just get your fingers used to doing this, it's really easy to follow along. Even if you don't know the song, because the vamp comes up, usually it's twice in the beginning, once between verses, and then twice at the end. So that's a lot of the song. Usually the part that trips people, if you just learn your vamps, boom, you've got the hard parts down. The rest of it is just following along with some chords during the verses. And a lot of times those chords end up being either the majors of that key, or they follow along with the vamp. There are numerous examples of this. Ulapalakua comes to mind, where it uses the chords that occur in the vamp, but it uses them in the verse, but they're in the same sequence. If we put it in the key of G, for example, it's going to start off on G. Well, it'll start with a vamp, so it'll go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. we'll have our one chord. C, G, what happens next? That's where people trip, right there. And it's, in this case, we're going to what we call the upstream section, the upstream 6. And that's going to be an E7 in this key, in the key of G. The 6th note of the scale would be E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's an E. 7, 8 would be the whole scale. The 6th note of the scale, we've got this upstream. The reason I call it upstream is once you jump in upstream, the natural tendency of the music is to flow downstream. It's not just Hawaiian music that does this, it's a lot of music. But it's all over the place in Hawaiian music. Not every single song, of course, there's always exceptions, but if you learn basic rules and get 90% of the stuff out of the way, it makes it a lot easier. Then you just have to worry about the other stuff that are the exceptions. The exceptions are what ends up proving the rule anyway. So here we are on an E7. Where are we in the verse? Hey, Nikki, Nikki. What happens next? If you look at your Kanikapila Chord Chart, follow along that page on the G line. After the E7, you get to A7. Ahi, ahi. What comes after that? Follow along on your chord chart. You get a D7. Then we go back to a G. I'm going to play a G6 here as an option. And then a vamp, which is what? Same thing it was in the beginning. A7. What comes after that? Look at your chord chart. D7. What comes after that? Look at your chord chart, and you're back to G6. So this is a really predictable song if you understand how a lot of these Hawaiian songs work. In any genre of music, once you learn the way that those songs tend to be put together, they tend to be very predictable. So this is not a, I mean, I could teach this for any genre of music, but we're talking about ukulele and Hawaiian music right now, specifically Kanikapila scenarios. So this is really good stuff to know, and it's the stuff I see people trip over and over again. So if I play that without, I'll play it without the words. I'll just call out the chords so you can look at your chord chart. This is, again, Ulapalakua in the key of G. And we're going to start with a vamp. So what's our chord? You guessed it. What comes after that? D7, and after that is a G. Now we're going to play another vamp because it's the beginning of the song, and that's the way it works. You usually get 2 vamps in the beginning. Moving on to the verse, I have a G. Then I'm going to go to a C. Back to a G, then I get my upstream, and I'm just flowing downstream back to the G. So it sounds nice. There's a reason why that sounds nice, and exploring why it is that sounds nice is what a lot of the next pages are. So it's gonna, why do these chords, why are they in use so frequently in so many different types of music? Because you see this in like swing music too. Like if you go back to the 20s, I'm thinking of like 5'2", Eyes of Blue, that kind of a thing. This is the same types of chord progressions that you see then. There's some reasons for that, but that's more of a history lesson than we need to go into to understand the book. Okay, if we wanted to play this suddenly, somebody says, oh, I want to play it in F. Can you do it in F? Sure. You take all the chords that were on the line for the G and you just move down one line to the line that says F. You can play it there too. A vamp in the key of F is going to be starting on the G7. You look at your chord chart, go down to the 3rd line where it says F. You've got a G7. What comes after that? C7. And what comes after that? F. And we'll do it again because it's the beginning of the song. Go into our verse, we go, that's optional, F7. Upstream. So, understanding and Hene Hene Koaka follows the same basic chord progression. Traditionally, that's done in the key of C. But if we did it in C, we won't sing the words. I'll just point out the chords. Would start on C, then would go to F, then back to the C, then it goes goes upstream, A7, then it goes D7, then it goes to G7, then it goes back to C. Then it does the vamp chords, D7, G7, and C. And then if you want to make it fancier, you could do, that's a stylized version. So this is really useful stuff to know. It's like, how do the Legos fit together to make music in general, especially in Hawaiian genre music, because that's what trips people. On the bottom of this page, it does talk about some of the rules for knowing which fingers to use, because on this chord chart I didn't put like a little number 1 inside this dot and a little number 2 inside that dot. It turns out, once you learn basic fingering rules for how to play your chords, you wouldn't want all those little numbers in the charts anymore. You can look at a diagram and know immediately where to put your fingers, and the rules are there on the page. But they help you out a lot in knowing, if you just look at a dot diagram, which fingers do I put where, and with those rules at the bottom of page 21, it makes it really pretty straightforward. All right, let's cut this video here, and then we'll move on to our next video.